The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello, welcome to the Smart Villages and LCEDN webinar, Growing Smart Villages, Energy and Agriculture for Development. We'd like to thank you very much for joining us here today. I'm Molly Hurley-Dupre, and today I'm pleased to welcome three speakers. That's going to be Vijay Bhaskar of Mlinda, Matt Carr of PSS PNG, and Anshuman Lath of Oorja. And so during the course of this webinar, we'd like to ask you to please send us your questions for the Q&A session, which we'll hold in the last 20 minutes of the webinar. And let us know who that question is directed to, and we'll pass that on to them and possibly take that up in the Q&A as well. If you'd like to tweet about the webinar, we're at E4 Smart Villages. So I'm just going to pop this into the chat box there, E4 Smart Villages. And also LCEDN, they're at UK LCEDN. Okay, great. And we'd also like to say to you as well that the presentations and the recording of this webinar will be available online on our site. So this is the Smart Villages site, e4sv.org. And I'm just popping that in there for you as well. So please do, if you have to leave early or if you want to share it with some of your colleagues, please do share that with them afterwards. It'll be available under our events section. And so before we launch into the webinar, I'd just like to do a couple of very quick polls to learn a little bit more about our audience today, and I see there are people still continuing to arrive. So just to start out and to get to know you guys a little bit better, we'd like to know where you're located. So if you would, please take a look at this poll here. Where do you live? North America, South America, Africa and the Middle East, Europe, and Asia, broadly speaking. Sorry, we have to include Australia and New Zealand there as well, just because it wouldn't allow me to add another bullet point. So let's see what we have there. Okay. So I think just about everybody has voted who wants to vote. Let's go ahead and close that one out, and we will see our results. So what we have here is, okay, 18% in North America, 6% in South America. Good morning to you guys. Africa and the Middle East and Europe, so we're at 18% and 35%, so good afternoon. And in Asia, good evening or good night, in fact, if you're in Australia and New Zealand, at 22%. Okay, wonderful. And I'd like to do one more quick poll. So it's to know a little bit about what your profession or field of work is. So if you wouldn't mind also just voting in this poll real quick. Are you working as a researcher, scientist, or in academia? Maybe you're working in government or as a policymaker or regulator. Are you an entrepreneur yourself? Perhaps you work for a nonprofit or NGO. And perhaps you're also from the private sector. So I'll just give you guys a couple more seconds to go on voting there. And I see as well we've got more people joining us as we go on. So that's wonderful. Thank you all for joining us here today. We're really pleased to have you. And we've got three great speakers coming up. So I'm just going to close this poll since most people have voted. Share that with you. Okay, great. So we've got about a quarter of people coming from research and academia, 6% policymakers, 7% entrepreneurs, 43% from nonprofits. Welcome to you all. 20% from the private sector. Okay, fabulous. So from here, actually, I think we're going to go straight into our first presentation. That's with Vijay Bhaskar from Mlinda. Hi, Vijay. How are you?
Hi, Molly. I'm absolutely fine. Looking forward to interacting with so many people out there.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, I'm just sending you a little request to start sharing your screen so we can launch into your presentation. And as I understand it from you, you are actually dialing in from an off-grid village. Is that correct?
Absolutely. I'm in Gumla, Jharkhand. It's an extremely remote place, a place very rich in minerals, but unfortunately ridden with a bit of conflict over a period of time. So, yeah, I'm in one of the villages called Arangtoli. Yeah.
Wow, wonderful. And I think we're going to hear a little bit about that in your presentation here. So I will let you take it away. Thank you so much for being here with us, Vijay.
Yeah, thank you, Molly. Hello, everybody. Over the next 10 minutes or so, I will be speaking to you about our experience with productive loads in a rural setting. Mlinda is a not-for-profit organization. Started out as a not-for-profit. We now have a for-profit arm that is basically the infrastructure arm of the not-for-profit. We've been operational in India for the last about 6 years, and we are an environmental organization that looks to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and work with communities on production and consumption of environmentally positive goods and improve the energy efficiency of the GDP of the villages that we work in. We put up 310 pico and microgrids in 5 districts of West Bengal and Jharkhand, that's in eastern part of India. And we've lately done 9 mini-grids in the Gumla district of Jharkhand. Yeah, and these, I'll be talking to you about our experience with these grids. As you understand, as you would understand, the kind of mini-grids varies based on size, technology, connectivity to the main grid, the economic status of the village, connectivity based on road communications, telecom, and so on, and also the availability of natural resources and human capital. Now, if you want to look at, we are trying to work to make the mini-grid sustainable, financially sustainable, and if you look at the mini-grids that are across the world in various geographies, so they're catering to different types of loads, domestic, commercial, productive. Then you have day and night, and if you're doing it through a renewable source of energy such as solar PV, then it's prudent to keep the night loads minimum and the day loads more, because then you can directly supply from the PV array to the grid. Now, as far as the breakdown of cost goes, the storage, metering, and transmission, as you would all be aware, contributes to the lion's share of the capital costs. Now, the connected load and the utilization of these loads is extremely important, and I'll talk more and more about this as we go forward. Just a couple of points. Just to keep in mind, the domestic loads are extremely volatile, and you really don't know how much a household would use from day to day. But if you look at a commercial load, the commercial loads are more stable because the livelihood of the entrepreneur depends on these loads. Now, if you look at productive loads, what are these productive loads and how are they different from commercial? How we look at commercial and productive is that commercial basically contributes to the income, the livelihood of the entrepreneur, whereas a productive load contributes to the income and the livelihood of the entire village or most of the village. Therefore, productive loads tend to be larger, intensive in farm machinery. They could be farm, non-farm. Productive loads based on agriculture, that farm loads are pretty much seasonal, as you would be aware of that. The stability of productive loads it's extremely stable, but you need to work on the utilization a lot. They could be by day and night, especially applications like pumping. Farmers prefer to water their fields late in the evening or early in the mornings to ensure that evaporation losses are kept to the minimum. Most of the farm loads consist of milling, crushing, pumping, winnowing, threshing, heating, and cooling applications. We'll see more of that as we go forward. Now, the Mlinda mini-grid is mainly rural, in tribal setting, remote location, and based on solar PV mainly. We also have some hybrid grids, wind coming up, and all these villages have got a diesel backup and supply 24/7 energy. All of them are capable of supplying 3-phase loads, AC power. There are smart prepaid meters, time of day tariffs, and the amount of energy that can be released can also be controlled. And of course, normal things like the maximum load that a household or a productive load can take. The size of these plants varies from 20 to 40 kilowatt. They're all ground mounted systems, and when we design a grid, we keep in mind that 80% of the capacity should be catering for productive loads such as irrigation pumps and rice hullers. The photograph you see on the right of the slide is one of our plants wherein our deputy director Sudeshna, who works with the communities, is talking to the engineer there, telling him what she wants from this grid. So to make things more clear, I'll take 2 case studies, village A and village B. The first case study will be of a small grid connect village where you have domestic productive loads but no commercial loads. The second village is a remote off-grid village which has all loads, domestic, productive, and commercial. Yeah, the first one is the Varangtoli village where I'm speaking from. Now you can see the power plant there. I'm actually sitting in that power plant that you see over there. We set up a small system with Wi-Fi and we're able to a router and then trying to communicate with you all. Now the pole that you see is what is called zero pole, the grid, and the board you there it's called Hamara grid. So this is the name that the villages are given to the grid. Hamara grid in Hindi language means our grid. Yeah. So this village is a grid connect village, 26 kilometers from the nearest town, and it's small with 45 households, but fertile farmlands, and water is available 10 months of the year. There aren't any commercial loads here. The grid came here six years back, but doesn't deliver too well. They get 3 to 4 hours of electricity, but not at the time of their choosing, and the quality of electricity is also keeps varying. Paddy is the main crop, and vegetables and pulses are grown. Farmers are very enterprising. The size of the plant is 22.5 kilowatts, and there are 2 large irrigation pumps, a rice huller, and 6 small pumps totaling to about 19 kilowatts that's connected. So you look at the plant size, 22.5 kilowatt, 19 kilowatts is connected productive load. Yeah. Now, sorry, let me just take you to the village. Just give me a second. Here we are, sorry. So this is the village we're talking about, Hamara grid, Arangtoli village, 22.5 kilowatts. Now that's the power plant in the background. Now these are the PV arrays, 5 of them, 4.5 kilowatts each. There is, this is the power operator's room and the control room, and you can see the diesel generating set on the right. Yeah, the PV array again, this is the inside the control room. You have the battery right up in front of you. You have the inverters on the right of the screen, the MPPTs on the left, those of you who are technically inclined, and the DCDB in the center, ACDB on bottom right. That's Shubro, our plant engineer, who lives in the plant, stays along with the operator, and he physically does the recharging of the systems and schedules the productive load every day. This is Ajay, who's the operator, works with Shubro, stays in the plant. And then we have a technician who maintains the TNT lines. Between the 3 of them, they run this whole grid. And over a period of time, to reduce the OPEX costs, we will reduce, the same team will look after more and more grids, which will be in the vicinity. Now, they're doing a maintenance of the array junction box, that's a zero pole in the background, the plant again, and this is the field which are pretty close to the plant, 700 meters from the river line, and we managed to reach water there about 2 months back. Yeah, another view of the fields. And here is this, there is a 6-inch pipeline that runs from the river right across the fields. So there are various risers. This is the last riser, which is 635 meters from the river line. And the 6-inch pipeline with the riser, and this is the force of water that you get with the 7.5 horsepower pump run on the mini grid. The closer view of that, another view of the plant. Yeah, what you see there is a pump house with a 3-phase meter in the foreground and the river in the background. Now there's a closer view. You can see Shubro there, the engineer, posing for you right next to the pump house. And this is the closer view of the 3-phase meter with the river in the background. So this is the 7.5 horsepower electric pump which we procured. I mean, we looked at the head displacement discharge of the pump that was already there. A diesel pump was giving them a lot of trouble. We replaced that with the electric pump. Yeah. This is another view of that. So there's a pump house, and this pump is shared by 22 farmers. There are 2 pumps like this, and a total of 37 farmers sharing these pumps. Now, this is the line that runs across. This is the line within the village. Those are those meters, prepaid meters. You need to, each household gets a card. You swipe the meter after paying for it and get it going. And just to show you that the national grid runs right next to the our poles, and their poles are right next to each other. Yeah, this is television that's now they can watch because of a better quality of power and reliability of availability. This is the electric rice huller. More about this as we go forward. Just to tell you that a women group operates these huller, and they do 500 kilograms per day. The village grows about 400 tons in a year. That will give you an idea of how much load that is there in the village. Yeah, there's a community area, central place where they all have their meetings. Yeah, that's Arangtoli village for you. Yes, and the issues that we face. Yeah. Now, how do we make it? What are the problems that we had? The maximum utilization we had was 40 units as against 75 units produced per day. Now this, mind you, is the maximum utilization. Our average utilization is somewhere in the region of 30 units per day when the loads are running. Now the seasonality is again a problem. Irrigation is only for 7 months in a year. The rest of the time it's the heavy rains in this area and the fields are completely inundated and paddy is the main crop. Also rice hulling takes place only for 9 months because there's not enough paddy to go around, and you need to sort of, how we sort of overcome this is something that I'll talk about. Now to reach commercial sustainability, you need to keep your, obviously keep your capital costs down, you need to keep your OPEX down, you also have to increase the utilization of the plant, keeping the cost low. So we formed, each of these pumps is shared by a large number of farmers. So a pump group, so less infrastructure, more people sharing, it means more utilization. The hullers, we formed huller groups with women. They are more responsible than men in the villages that we work, and most, and whatever income they get, it contributes to the family income. So these women, they hull rice, which is over and above the rice that's hulled by the entrepreneur, so that it caters for not only the local consumption in the village, but also for selling it in the market. Previously, about of the 250 tons that is produced, only 60 tons used to be hulled in and consumed in the village. The rest, almost 200 tons, was being sold through middlemen at the price of rupees 10 per kilogram as husk rice. Now the dehusked rice sells for 20 rupees a kilogram and is directly sold to the market. So what's there on the table, that rupees 10, is what is shared between the women group and the village. So that's an example of an innovative way to take productive loads for development of a village. The second village is Naratoli village. This is the off-grid village, plant capacity 22.5 kilowatts, larger than the other village, 80 households, has productive loads as commercial loads as well. So there are 58 poultry units, 2 large pumps, 2 rice hullers that are connected. So let's go take a quick round of this village. I have some photographs for you. Yeah, this is the women's huller group in the village, which this village produces almost 400 tons of paddy, out of which they consume about 100 tons, 120 tons, and the rest is sold to middlemen as paddy. Now these women hull that rice that's not consumed in the village. The one that consumed in the village is done by the entrepreneur of the village. Now they sell rice, and this is the finished product that you see here, directly to the market, and good quality rice goes for 20 rupees a kilogram. Yeah? And this money that is on the table, 10 rupees per kilogram, is shared by them and the village. So this was an example of a 0.75 horsepower pump, which is used to do small vegetable patches which are smaller than 1 acre. Some of pictures of that. Now this, what you see in the background, is a chicken poultry unit. Now this is again an example of how various farmers share resource. I mean, you have one pump, but the pipeline runs to other fields as well. Yeah, and you can see some more of those chicken and poultry units in the background. Yeah, that's a meter box that is there. Yeah, this is a 3-phase meter that is actually utilized by this entrepreneur here. This powers the electric huller. I told you the other one is done by the women huller group. The entrepreneur does the 100 tons within the village and used for consumption within the village. What you see here is a infrared lamp which has been innovated by Mlinda engineers to ensure that the newly hatched chicks in the poultry are kept warm for the first 4 days, and each lamp is about 250 watt load. This is normal lighting of the poultry. Some more pictures of the plant, a closer view of the plant. This plant is slightly different from the other ones, so I'll try and give you a shot of the interior as well. Yeah, this is a slightly different set of equipment for those who are technically inclined. Yeah, sketch of the village. This is the Mlinda engineer. He recharges. These are the meter boxes with the meters. Now back to what we were discussing. So this village, yeah, this village had a better peak utilization of 50 units per day. It's still not the average utilization. Average is somewhere between 30 to 40 units per day. The problem again is seasonality and seasonality and utilization. So how do you sort of deal with these villages? How do you reach commercial sustainability? You have this. You have to look at other potential loads. We're looking at oil expellers. We're looking at cold storages. We're experimenting with us getting the village to build a business model around those. Yeah, and you have to. This is what I was talking about, an innovative application. You look at the slide on the right, you have the infrared lamp that's been improvised to keep the chicks warm. Yeah? So some of these lessons that we have learned, water pumping is a universal anchor load in these areas, and it can be used as an anchor load in any village that you go in India, in this part of India. The existing diesel and fossil fuel machinery has to be first replaced with equivalent electric machines. So we've done a lot of work in this area, ready to share our work with you all. Innovative mechanisms such as sharing meters by forming groups, heating and cooling applications would contribute enormously to increase the utilization. The pricing of tariffs should be so designed that to ensure that it gives you a better value as compared to the status quo system that's mainly running on fossil fuels. The utilization can be increased if it increases not just the entrepreneur's profit but benefit the whole village. I think this is the key to all productive loads. And productive energy access must be mainstream, not just for as an energy. The goal should be to sort of mainstream it with developmental goals such as health and education. And it pays huge dividends to involve women in productive businesses. I've come to the end of my presentation. Thank you very much, and I will be available, through Smart Villages, and if you would like to write directly to me. Thank you so much. I'm done.
Thank you so much, Vijay. That was great. Thanks for all the visual aspects so that we can see a little bit what's really going on the ground where you are right now. So that's wonderful. Thank you so much. So I'm just going to go over to our next speaker. Our next speaker is Matt Carr from PSS PNG. Hi, Matt. Are you there on the line?
Hi, Molly. I'm here.
Okay, wonderful. I'm just going to send through a quick request to share your screen.
Sure.
Sorry, let me just go ahead and do that. Okay, great. So wonderful. So, and you're based in Australia right now, right? So it's very late for you. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Yeah, if I stop talking halfway through, someone make a loud noise because I might have fallen asleep. But
no problem. I'll come online and wake you up. No problem. Okay. Well, thank you so much, and we're looking forward to hearing about your work.
Okay, great. Look, okay, thanks, Molly. Yes, so my name's Matt Carr. I work for, my company is Project Support Services, and this presentation is on some technology we've developed, solar-powered agro-processing machinery. Okay, so just a little bit of background. PSS was established back in 2001 by Greg Den. He's the fellow in the bottom right-hand corner there. Initially as an engineering services company, but it quickly transitioned into a supplier and manufacturer of agricultural machinery, and then in the mid-2000s started getting involved in renewable energy, particularly solar and biofuels. Greg started working on this idea to solarize micro mills back in 2014. And we worked together for 10 years or so. And I got involved with the company in 2015 to help bring these machines to market. The traditional company PSS is based in PNG, Papua New Guinea. We've still got the business up there, and more recently we're building capacity and capabilities in China. So we've got a factory over there, and we've just expanded that, and that's really where our future is in manufacturing of these solar ag machines. So just coming back to what it's all about. Essentially, the people that living off the grid are also the same people that depend on agriculture for their livelihood. There's just about perfect parity in those numbers. And so when we talk about development services and improving people's livelihoods, generally the most effective thing to do is to raise them out of poverty, and the best chance to do for rural people to do that is to value add to agricultural produce. And then a big part of that is the post-harvest processing of food. So currently what's out there is pretty limited. As a starting point, the traditional method is manual processing. So obviously labour intensive, very low output. The next step up, if someone wants to step up to mechanically processing food, the first option is a small diesel-powered machines. Now these start at about 2.5 kilowatts in size. They're expensive. The O&M costs are expensive. They're failure prone. PSS has been selling little diesel mills for years, and in 90% of the cases the failure happens at the diesel engine, and typically, you know, in rural places due to poor fuel and poor maintenance. The third option is to take your produce into a larger town or village and process at a larger mill. So that's relatively high ongoing costs. And what's often not captured in that is the cost of time, particularly for people in small, more remote villages that have to travel in to mill their 10 kgs or 20 kgs of rice or corn or whatever it is. So what we decided to do is to make an alternative. So our solar mills are designed to kind of fill that gap between manual processing and that starting point of diesel mills. Manual processing, a human can deliver about 200 watts of energy. Like I said before, the diesel engines are about 2.5 kilowatts. So it's quite a big leap, and often, you know, we see that those small diesel mills are even too big for a lot of small villages. So what we've done with our range of machines, we've kind of targeted that energy gap between manual processing and small diesel mills, and our current range is sized between 250 watts to 1,200 watts. They process food about half the speed of those small diesel machines, at half the rate, I should say. But that's still 10 to 30 times faster than what a human can typically manually process food at. So what we're trying to do is, you know, is free up labour is a big part of it. And that labour being freed up is typically women's labour. So our machines are the whole system is DC. The machines all run on 24-volt DC motors. They're really low maintenance. You know, electric motors rarely need maintaining. You know, if you think about the last time you had to change the motor in your washing machine or a power drill or hairdryer or whatnot, you don't really have to do much maintenance on electric motors, and easy to use, a payback period around 2 to 4 years, and that payback period is for the whole that I'm talking about is for the solar system that powers those machines itself. And what that means is that these machines, they're not just about processing food, but it's about meaningful access to electricity. So if a picture tells 1,000 words, so they say this should tell a few more. This is a short video of our machines in action. I'll just turn that down. This is a cut down version of a demo video we've got. I let it run for a little bit just to show how everything, you know, can plug in and plug out. So this first machine's a rice huller. So this will produce brown rice and at a rate of about 40 to 50 kgs an hour. You can see in the background our solar panels. That's a 500 watt system. And so we use a kind of a universal plug system. So the whole thing's plug and play. So as you can see, you just pull the plug out of one machine and plug it into the next machine. And this one is a rice polisher. So this will take your brown rice and remove the bran or kind of endosperm layer and produce white rice. You can just see in the bottom of that shot too our battery boxes, which we make up again with a plug system. So there's no need to wire anything together. So the videos start to skip forward from here through the other machines we offer. So this is a cassava grater, or it's a anything grater really, but in this shot where the cassava has been grated. This is coconut scraper, probably a little bit more Pacific oriented than our other machines, but a pretty popular machine in Papua New Guinea and Vanuatu. This is a corn thresher. Pretty efficient machine, produces about 200 kgs of corn kernels an hour. And finally, this is a hammer mill. So in this one, I'm putting the corn kernels in to produce flour. But this machine is a multi-purpose machine, and essentially anything hard and dry can produce flour. This is just an off-the-shelf inverter, which we've just put one of our plug systems onto. So you can plug that in to run AC appliances. And that is the control box we make, which has a solar regulator inside and a few other smarts. And there's a little 12-volt section on the bottom there for phone charging and lights, etc. Okay. So just where we're at as a company, we've got our first generation of machines are the ones you just saw in the video. They're out in the market. We've got about 280 sales last year, and we hoping to double that next year. But the big thing for us now is to, apart from just ongoing with those sales, is to develop our next second generation of machines, which we started on and looking to do trials mid and later this year. Pretty much looking to focus on rice and corn or maize and cassava as they are the three major staples in Africa. With our new machines, we're designing and building them from scratch, and very much with solar in mind and efficiency in mind. And part of that development is to make them pay-as-you-go ready. Clearly, all the market trends out there are pointing towards this digital financing model, and certainly for productive assets like our machines, which are relatively expensive, if we can offer them, or if our distributor can offer them at a lower market entry point, and then with incremental payments, and that's good for everyone. And then finally, looking to rebrand next year with a new company look and feel. And establish an East Africa base in, well, late next year or early in 2018. Okay, that's my presentation. It's not clicking over to the next. There we go. That's all. Thank you.
Great, thanks so much, Matt. So that's great. Everybody, you can see Matt's email address and website address there. So yeah, please do get in touch with him if you've got some ideas to share with them, or you have some questions as well. Thanks so much, Matt. That's really interesting. We'll come back to you in the Q&A.
Sure, my pleasure.
Great. So great. Well, moving on here, we're coming to our third presentation, but before I do that, just like to encourage everybody, if you do have questions, if you've got questions for Matt about the machines that they've developed, for all of this agricultural processing, or if you're wondering about, the responses to this, please send in those questions, and as well for Vijay, if you have questions for him, and we will try to take those up in the Q&A. So I'm just going to move over to Anshuman. Hi, Anshuman. How are you doing?
Yeah, very fine. Thanks, Molly. And a very good morning, evening, afternoon to everyone. Namaste.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Anshuman. So I've just sent you the request, so we should be seeing your presentation here on the screen at any second. Wonderful. And I understand you've got quite a lot of photos to show us. I really enjoy, I hope the audience is enjoying as well, so how photo and video rich all of these presentations have been. So I will let you get started. And thanks so much for joining us, Anshuman.
Thank you, and a very, very warm welcome to everyone. So Gram Oorja was started in 2007. The word Gram in Indian languages means rural, and Oorja means energy. So we are a rural energy solutions company, and we work across technologies like solar, biogas. Now we do microhydro. We are also exploring solar thermal and biomass gasification as we speak. This photo actually captures a lot of the work that we do. Essentially, it shows the kind of terrain that we work in, very much like the terrain that Vijay has been talking about. This is very, very remote India. These are small communities, 30 to 70 households, 4 to 5 people per household, farming communities, and traditionally have been off the grid. So the grid doesn't reach there for either administrative reasons, sometimes also for logistical reasons. Small hamlets beyond 2 or 3 hills, it's difficult to take a line, and there are a few hundred, maybe a few thousand of such villages across the tribal belt of India. This grid is a 9.36 kilowatt peak grid. We set it up in 2011. We inaugurated this early 2012 and has been running for the last 4.5 years, with every household paying for the usage of electricity that they do. If you see this grid, it is typically larger than just lighting. So we anticipated some amount of productive uses in this village. This is the grid in the village, and this is the social interaction which we did. So one of the first things which we try to bring into the village is a small a small grinding machine for converting the wheat or the rice into something which they can use. And this was inaugurated and has been used, but not a great success in this particular village. But we find that in other microgrids that we've set up, this has been quite a success. But the water pump has been a roaring success. If the grid shuts down for even 15 minutes, we get to know that the water pump is not working, and this is typically for drinking water, but a little bit of agriculture also happening because of this. This is another grid. We have now done close to 20 grids, microgrids in these remote villages, and are implementing another 11 as we speak. So we would be around 27, 28 villages by March 2017. All of these grids have a productive component, but they are smaller than the ones as Vijay spoke, which is of the range of 20, 30 kilowatt peak. We are in the range of 7 to 15, 16 kilowatt peak in most cases. Another of our microgrids which was inaugurated, this is a good photograph because it shows you another small aspect, and you see a lot of trees here just behind the panels. And when you look at these trees, you will find that they don't have branches. So most of these branches have been used up for firewood, as firewood. So we will come back to this. And while we are looking at solar, or we are looking at energy in these villages, the core aspect that we are trying to touch is the farmer. So while people look at water, people look at every other thing, what we're trying to see is what would keep the farmer engaged, and what would keep the farmer in his village, and what would make his life less distressful. And it means education, it means better health, it means water, it means cleaner cooking fuel, it means light, which is also there, and his ability to do something which he would do in a motorized or a mechanized way. So these are some of the microgrids, and a street light in one of these villages, a light inside one of these houses, and so on. This is an interesting picture. This is a picture made by a tribal, which is a typical form called Warli painting, and depicts village life. A lot of women doing all kinds of stuff. But here you see a solar panel which has cropped up, and then you see some pump and some water and some places where people are now collecting water. We will come back again to this. So another one of such pictures where you see the grid with some of the solar lights also in the village in this kind of a rural setting. This is a micro hydro turbine, roughly 4 kilowatt output, which was set up in a remote tribal village, again, which is off grid, and this water grows during the monsoon season for 6-8 months when the solar is not so great for 2-3 months. So this is a great complementarity. And in this village you have this rice huller. So just like Vijay was talking about his villages, we also have some of them here. And a typical rice huller which is in working in this village, powered by our microgrid. So just to keep it small, yeah. So when we move into communities or into clusters of villages, we find that there are villages which are electrified but have a real problem in terms of drinking water. So the people would typically stay up on the hill and the water source would be down there somewhere. It would be a small well or a small stream, and women would have to typically take this water up for their household, and this water would be just enough for the drinking water needs and cooking needs, and maybe so sanitation and anything else was out of the question, because each of these small utensils is 15 to 20 kilograms of water, and 2 of these means 35-40 kgs of water that they are carrying back to their homes every day, maybe twice a day in some cases. And this is a picture we took once when we were crossing one of these areas where there's a whole line of women, and every part of this water is always carried by women in our country. We've rarely seen men taking this, and this water is, again, as I would like to emphasize, is only for drinking water and cooking purposes, so nothing else at the household level is possible. So in all of these places we do a lot of solar water pumping. We would have installed close to 60 odd solar water pumping systems in these tribal hamlets, with a lot of public participation in terms of identifying the village, even in the implementation phase. This is a larger pump for irrigation, which is a 7.5 kilowatt peak kind of a solar pump, but just a pump, not a, because the village itself is electrified, very poor electricity, and also the last pole is at a reasonable distance from the source of water. So pumping was not possible with that kind of electricity, and it's a single phase electricity in the village. So a lot of these places, if you see all of our photographs, the terrain is typically very, very hilly. This is the tribal belt of India, extending from the east where Vijay works and in Jharkhand all the way till the west. So our work is also in and around Jharkhand, Odisha, parts of Madhya Pradesh, Vidarbha, and in parts of the westernmost parts of India near Mumbai. So this is for a drinking water kind of a system. We would put this up, and then instead of carrying water on their heads for 2 hours or 1.5 hours, you will find women getting water right next to their house, maybe 2 or 3 of such stand posts, as they call them in the village. This is the larger pump for agriculture that we had set up, and we will now move to. So this is an interesting one. So while we were thinking that this is a drinking water kind of a system, this woman is talking about how she's been growing this small kitchen garden in her backyard. So from that photograph where you would see she's one of the people in that huge queue of a line of people carrying water on their heads all the way out to their households, she is talking about how she's growing some flowers and some vegetables in her own backyard. And what is the source of this water? So the source of this water is from that stand post, and this is the water which kind of is the overflow after women have filled their buckets and or utensils. So similar stories all across. We are actually seeing this. This is a small kitchen garden. Again, this is a kitchen garden which was not intended to be an agriculture project, but because now there is water in their vicinity, you see people growing small amounts of vegetables or things that they can sell in the market. Typically, the same areas you would have primary health centers also which need electricity, and we will talk about this at some other time. while we were doing all this, we realized that the real concern, apart from water, was the cooking fuel, and almost all of rural India, especially the tribal belt, was dependent on cooking using firewood. So we moved a long distance to try and see if we can do community-based applications also for cooking fuel, and we came across biogas, which we've been doing for some years. So this is one of our first pilots where we have a biogas plant in one corner, a pipeline which takes the gas. Each house is then metered, and then you have the flame in the burners in each house. So typically the same structure, a central biogas plant like in a solar microgrid. So the learnings come from the solar microgrid. The setting up of a state plant, taking the energy into each household, using pipelines, and then we can add the household, which is a core aspect of our work. So,
Hi everyone. I'm not sure if you're able to hear me at this
yeah.
moment. We are having some technical difficulties. Can you hear me, Anshuman?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay, sorry, that was just a problem with GoToWebinar. I hear you perfectly. If you guys are still experiencing problems with the sound, just let me know through your comments box. And sorry about that. Anshuman, had you finished your presentation? Maybe you can say a last goodbye or last word at least, since everyone didn't hear that last.
Yes, I mean, a last goodbye with a small picture. I mean, this is interesting. So I would like to share this, 2 pictures. So if people are around, I mean, so this is the real joy in doing all this. You will see every child in India getting educated, and especially the women and the girls. So when they are in the villages, they are going to be looking for better lives as they get more and more educated. So either there is going to be migration away from these villages into smaller towns or larger cities, but if we can take the basic infrastructure into these villages, I'm sure that there is a reason for people to feel less distressed in these remote tribal areas that we work in. The last picture is quite interesting, which I would like to share with you. Again, I think there's a problem with GoToWebinar or so.
Yes, sorry, I can hear you there. Sorry, it was breaking up still a little bit, and we're really sorry for that. Apologies. Do let me know if you all can't hear me, and we'll see if this is a problem with GoToWebinar, or maybe it's just one of our connections. Anshuman, sorry, had you finished there? Do you want to try again? I think we're having a little bit of a difficulties hearing you a couple of times.
Yeah, can I just show the last picture this time?
Of course, no problem.
Okay. So this is again an interesting village where we saw a large number of cattle, a very, very large number of cattle. This is a milk, producing community, a cattle rearing community, and all of this milk, because it's far from a consumption center like a city, is converted into something which can be transported over a longer distance, and for that they either need to cool it or to heat it up, and for that you need energy. This energy today is coming from this firewood, which is taken out from trees nearby forests, and these are the typical kinds of villages we are targeting also for our biogas program, to keep the value addition going for the farmer, and to make sure that there is enough energy saving or saving down on the deforestation in these villages. Thank you so much for listening.
Sorry, Anshuman, I think you're breaking up again. But we will come back to you in the Q&A, and that That's wonderful. Thank you so much for your presentation. Sorry for these technical troubles during your presentation. Okay, so I am just going to start the Q&A now. So we're going to go back around to Vijay, and I'm going to start off with one of the first questions that we received. Actually, I think it might be our first question. Let me just reading the question here. So the question we have is coming from Hannah Motram. Hi, Vijay. Are you there on the line?
Yeah, I am on the line. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you well. Thank you. So the question on the first presentation, okay, so Hannah would like to know how the communities were involved in the design of the energy solutions. Could you tell us a little bit about how the communities got involved? And also, is there anything in place in terms of the financing, how it was financed, how do people pay? And is there anything in place for the poorest in the community who have less ability to pay?
Yeah. Thank you for that question. I think that about really goes to the very heart of the matter, and that's precisely what our organization is about. We've been, as I mentioned, working with communities for the last about 6 years. We started as a picogrid with picogrid systems that provided energy to small, grids, with small grids, 10 houses each. So that sort of gave us the background to build the strength to be a very community intensive organization. So even for the mini grids that you just saw, even before we start, 3 months to 6 months before, we start working with the communities to understand what the issues are, and in participation with them and in consultation with them, we design these solutions. So those rice hullers, the pumps that you saw, were actually, we designed it with their help. We didn't sort of invent or reinvent the wheel, so to speak. We actually went to the market, looked at solutions that were available, worked with the communities, and selected the best possible solution, keeping in mind the requirements. So that was the kind of community participation that we have. And even before we sort of establish a grid, we ensure that at least 70% of the community signs up and 100% of the productive load sign up. So this sign up actually means that they pay an advance to us in terms of a certain percentage of the cost or a connection fee, and then we start work on the project. So that's the kind of community interaction that we have. The next part of the question is about financing. Now, I'll cover 2 parts of the financing. One, the grid itself. Now that is a major capital expenditure, and this is done by Mlinda. We use a combination of debt, equity, and grant. So the grids that you saw had about 40% grant, 15% equity, and the balance debt. Going forward, the next phase of grids that we're doing has got 30% grant, 20% equity, 50% debt. So that's as far as the plant is concerned. Now, if you go down to each of these machinery that was put in place, because we had to replace fossil fuel machinery with electric ones, so we sort of we finance it. By we, I mean Mlinda does the financing, and we also raise money through crowdfunding portals for this. So there's a crowdfunding portal called Milap, Bangalore-based, which also provides us funds for doing a microfinancing of these assets. So for instance, let's say a rice huller costs about 34,000 Indian rupees. So they pay up about 10,000 Indian rupees upfront and pay the rest in about 12 installments. For the very, very poorest, I think that's the next part of the question. We are flexible to increase the number of installments and keep the initial amount down. So we have the flexibility sort of is our forte, and we sort of tailor make customize the solution depending on the ability to pay and various other things in the community.
Thanks so much, Vijay. Thanks. That's very helpful, and I hope Hannah, I hope that answers your question and probably some of the other audience members' questions too. Okay, great. I'm going to move over to Matt now. So Matt, hi, are you there on the line?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, great. We have another question, and I thought, yeah, it's for you and Vijay, but I'll ask it to you first. So the question is really focusing on financing, and this is from Divyam Nagpal, and he'd like to know how we unlock financing for renewables compatible agro equipment, like the kind of things that you have, that's targeting end users at a time when financing for off-grid renewables itself is increasingly a challenge. So how do you guys balance that as a company? How do you deal with the financing side of things, and what do you think could be done to improve that for entrepreneurs such as yourself and for villagers that you work with?
Yeah, it's a tough one for us because clearly our machines are not they're not a $50, $100 product. Presently, we're working through kind of supported programs, either that's government donor or CSI programs. One of our close partners, Village Infrastructure Angels, who's implementing a USAID Powering Ag project in Vanuatu in Indonesia, is offering our products or selling our products under a lease to own scheme, and that's proving really effective and successful. We look at the trends of what's going on in Africa around digital finance and pay-as-you-go or pay-to-own, and clearly that's going to develop more and more in the coming years, and we want to make our products capable to tap into those kind of financing options. It's still going to take someone, a distributor of some sort to offer those products, and to carry that debt essentially on the asset until it's paid off. But with the trends going on around in this area, there's a lot of finance starting to get mobilized for this pay-as-you-go, pay-to-own sector. So we really see that as a big thing in the future for us.
And can I just ask a follow-up question? Where is that finance being mobilized from? Is this from private sector, public sector, kind of angels?
Yeah, well, I just saw on one of my email outs the other day. There's the Nova Lumis, who are they're a solar company working in Nigeria. They just did a $90 million capital raise for their pay-as-you-go products. Now that's I don't know where it came from, but it's impact investors or just pure finance or not sure where it's coming from, but clearly the financial world is realizing with this technology, with this pay-as-you-go tech, you've got customers that are buying to extended payback periods, and so far the pay-as-you-go solar market in Africa has only got a 10% default rate. So yeah, a lot of it's coming in from private, supported through donors and multinationals, and yeah, if anyone's out there, we're also this year in a finance raising mode. So might have a bit more news on that in 6 months from now.
Yeah, no, that's great. That's great. It's just, I think a lot of people in the audience are probably interested, and it does seem like it is getting to be more and more of a hot area. I think as people are starting to really realize how the productive uses of energy are important for villagers, but also they're a very valid business proposition as well. So I think that's very interesting. So we will come back around to you, Matt. Thank you so much. And we'll go now to Anshuman. Hi, Anshuman. Are you there?
Hi. Yeah.
So we've had quite a few questions also coming in just here at the end for you as well. So I wanted to ask you one quick question about, so for example, about gender and women. I'll do a follow-up question on another topic here, but one person had the question, Huda Mustafawi had a question that they have the experience that from one remote location that women, for example, weren't allowed to connect appliances without the permission of fathers, husbands, and even brothers. How do you think about in your work the way that women are also benefiting equally as men are from these appliances in rural areas? how have you found that? Because I've noticed there are quite a few women in your presentation. So how are they benefiting equally from that?
Okay, so I think the benefit would typically be 80% women, in the sense that the kerosene, which was the only way they would light up their houses in these off-grid villages, was earlier brought in by women, used by women. The firewood also is always carried on headloads by women, and also about the drinking water. So in each of our villages, we set up a small village energy committee, which we call as the Gram Oorja Samiti, and we realized that we have had success only when we have had women participating in that. So we would like to have at least 50% women in each of these committees. In terms of household loads, in the areas that we work in these tribal communities, the women typically have quite a lot of say. So it is not that they really have to ask too much if they want to put in appliances. For example, in one of the villages, they used mixer grinders, and I think almost all the women ended up buying these mixer grinders in that village. So yeah, if that answers your question.
Yeah, and if I can ask you as well, kind of related to the other questions on finance, how do the women afford to buy them? Is there some type of microfinance in place for them, or how does it work? How are they paying for it? And do they pay in installments, or is there a pay-as-you-go option?
For the equipment?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we've realized typically that there is a cash economy, what we call as a money order economy in these areas, because most of these households would have one or two people also staying in some city close by, or working as labor somewhere, or so there is some kind of money flowing into these households. So it's not very as if there's no cash in the system. So yes, there are self-help groups and such kind of microfinance mechanisms in place, but I think for the small equipment, we have had villages where people have brought in refrigerators,
Mm-hmm.
and tried to sell cold drinks in small businesses like that in one or two villages. So they would buy a second-hand refrigerator, which is cheap. But so in most of these villages, we see that 25% of the households could end up having televisions, which is all bought on cash. So our learning is that there is a cash economy which is in place. It's not that they are the poorest of the poor, or having nothing to pay.
Mm-hmm. Okay. No, that's great. That's great. Wonderful. Thank you so much, Anshuman. I'm just going to go back around to Vijay now. Vijay, still on the topic of financing, I think we have a lot of interest in this subject today, and it makes sense, right? Because we need to understand how you all as companies are able to create sustainable business models, and also how the people you're working with are paying for the items that they buy. So the question that I have for you comes from Nathaniel Johnson. This is about what is the payment system you've used for your microgrids? Is it a company that offers a system? He mentions a couple of companies like Lumeter or Sparketer, or did you design your own system?
Yeah, I think I sort of deal with this in two parts. One is the mini grid itself, which is very capital intensive, and then those machinery, etc., which like a pump or a rice huller or any other smaller pump, etc. Now, as far as the mini grid itself is concerned, Mlinda acts as a utility. So Mlinda owns these grids. So Mlinda, as I was telling you before, Mlinda raises finance, its own finance, puts in its own equity, and gets debt. There is a certain element of grant which we've been reducing over a period of time. So right now we're down to 30% grant support for the capex itself. So with the kind of tariffs that we are presently getting, and with 30% grant, and we are in the region of something like 4 euros per watt, or something like $4.2 per watt, is the $4.3 per watt is the capital outlay for the project. With the present tariffs that we have and the present utilization that we have, we'll take about 7 years to break even. So that's in as far as, and where this comes from, it comes from various sources. The equity comes obviously from our foundation itself, or from the private limited company. We bring in debt from like-minded foundations, from other organizations, from crowdfunding portals, and so on. The banks have not yet bitten into this as yet. The grant part again comes from like-minded foundations. So that's as far as the capex and the break-even is concerned. Now, when you come to financing the productive devices, they range anywhere from television sets, which are obviously going to be energy efficient, and right up the spectrum to rice hulling machines. So from $100 to about $700. That's the range, kind of financing that's required for each household. Now that we do it ourselves. We raise funds by various methods. Our foundation puts in money, some seed money, or then we also use that as a revolving, having a revolving debt. We raise finances from crowdfunding portals for this. We also have public sector banks which like to fund these kind of, it's almost some kind of a priority sector lending, where these people are below a certain income level and banks are mandated to lend. And we've had a good experience with the banks as far as this is concerned, because over a period of the last 6 years we've worked with the Apex Rural Bank, which is the NABARD, National Bank for Rural Development. We've had other public sector banks such as the UBI and the Union Bank of India who have also pitched in for financing productive devices, household devices. Yeah, does this answer your question, Molly?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, Vijay. Wonderful. So we're just going to move over to Matt again and ask him a question. Let's see. So let me just take you off mute. Hi, Matt. Are you there?
Yeah, hi.
So we have one question here asking about the consumption fees of electricity and how people are paying for that. I mean, these machines, this equipment, it is demanding a greater amount of electricity, correct, than what people would use just for lighting a home, for example. How are they managing to pay those fees, and how do you also, we had another question about how you collect payment. So how do you go about doing that from a practical standpoint?
Yeah, from our perspective, we don't really have to deal with it. We simply, like, we're a manufacturer, so we make the machines and sell them. In Papua New Guinea, we sell them as a retailer, and they're generally cash payments. So either that can come through some supported program or a government program or whatnot, or a community kind of rallies together and raises the money collectively to buy the machine or buy the system. Our partner in I was talking about before, Village Infrastructure Angels, they're a kind of a prime example of the type of companies that we want to work with, because VIA go out and raise the money or acquire the money to buy the machines, and then they sell them on a lease to own arrangement. So that's a perfect arrangement for us. But I think there's more and more companies kind of starting to do this. I know there's another great company in Zambia called Rent to Own, and those guys sell productive assets, water pumps, generators, mills, and they just do it through a traditional financing model. So they've got they go out and raise their money from wherever that might be, and then through their network of farmers, they sell those products on a lease to own arrangement. And again, I think that for those guys, that's proven to be a successful model, and but it's a bit, you need feet on the ground to do stuff like that. No, they employ a lot of guys, or staff, I should say, to go around and ensure those regular payments are maintained and collected. And what I was saying before, I think in this kind of changing world of digital finance, the ability to make payments and the transaction fees around that and the costs around that are going to reduce quite a lot, and make these products more affordable, and certainly the interest rates on them more affordable.
Thank you. Yeah. Thanks very much for clarifying that. That helps people to understand a little bit that we've got kind of multiple people from different parts of the value chain here. So that's very good to hear from a manufacturer. So as a last question, I am going to go to Anshuman. Hi, Anshuman.
Yep.
And
Hi.
what I wanted to ask you about is about smart villages, and I thought it's kind of a good question to end on, is how do these types of equipment, right, that obviously it frees up a lot of people's time, it can free up especially women's time, how does that have knock-on benefits for development? Because that really is the crux of the matter in our work, in LCEDN's work. How do you ensure that in addition to improving incomes and freeing up time, that there's also education and health benefits coming along with this? Have you seen some examples like that in your work?
Yes, very much so. So, one of the things that we have been really surprised is when the monitoring and evaluation was being undertaken by some of our partners. We had one professor from University of Minnesota who spent a lot of time in these villages, and she's designing an evaluation program. And she came back saying that, even as we talk about the microgrids, the water pumping solution has really freed up time for the women. So instead of going in the morning and then not knowing whether they'll be back in an hour or two, by which time the children would have, missed the school time, so they would not be able to send them off. So it is a lot of, impact on education. They're being able to spend some time with the families. They're also being able to spend some more time with the farm and trying to do something like this, or rearing to their cattle or their animals. And what has also been seen is that there is a large, interest now that we are seeing in some of our newer villages, where people are saying that how can we, use computers in our village. So this is something that I was witness to in 2 or 3 of our villages, that people have been saying that, does this now mean that we can run a computer in our village? The moment that comes in, they can look at doing some kind of typing in their own languages and slowly, getting more computer literate, then later on being able to download stuff, or for the education market to reach out to them via online courses and stuff. So, which is a big push in India today. In rural India, because of the lack of quality teachers in some areas, there is a large push also by government and non-government organizations to take some content into these villages through the use of media and computers. So I think this is something that we are already seeing some traction in.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, that's very exciting to hear. And I know that the rest of our audience still had quite a few questions, but since we are at time, I'm going to go ahead and close it. But what I'm going to do for everybody who didn't have their question answered, I'm going to pass your questions along to the presenters, and they can be in touch with you to follow up and to see. And just as a reminder, we will have the presentations on our website, e4sv.org. Let me just pop this down here in the box for you. It will be up on the website. It should be up there in about 24 hours or less. And we'd like to thank all of you for joining us here today. When I close the webinar, there will be a survey that pops up. So if you wouldn't mind sticking around just a couple of more minutes and giving us your thoughts on what you thought went well, what you thought went not so well, which I know the sound, for example, at one point, but thank you for sticking around through all of that. We really appreciate it. And we want to thank all of our speakers. So Vijay, Matt, and Anshuman, I'm taking you off of mute here and just want to say thank you so much for being here today, especially at some very challenging hours and after work hours, but as entrepreneurs, I think you all are used to that, aren't you?
Well, it was a pleasure. I mean, yeah, it's a pleasure with this program, and I hope it was useful for people who attended all over the world.
Absolutely, I think so. So we'll look forward to staying in touch with the three of you and seeing how things go for you in the new year. And we'd like to wish everybody season's greetings, happy holidays, and happy New Year. So we'll look forward to staying in touch with all of you.
Thank you. Same to you all.
Thank you.
Thank you, Molly. Thanks, everyone.
Cheers. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye.